Investing in a company-sponsored 401k is one of the most effective ways to save for retirement. However, a lot of people make huge mistakes that cost them millions in retirement savings every year. Hello everybody, my name is David Del Barrel, co-founder of Strata Capital, and today I'm going to talk about the 4 biggest mistakes we help people fix so they can save at least $1 million by retirement. Borrowing from your 401k or treating it like a savings account is almost always detrimental to your long-term retirement wealth. Withdrawing funds before retirement will not only subject you to income taxes and penalties, but you'll also lose the potential growth and compounding benefits you would have received over time. Let's look at an example of someone who is 35 withdrawing a large sum from their retirement accounts to pay off credit card debt and for a down payment on a home. Meet Steve. Steve works for a Fortune 500 company and has been saving diligently into his retirement accounts since he started his career at his last employer. He currently resides in New Jersey and his current income is $200,000 per year. He files his taxes as single every year since he's not married yet. Steve is looking to purchase a home and has been advised by his mortgage broker that he will need to pay off his credit card debt of $22,000 to qualify for that mortgage. Steve is also short $30,000 for his down payment. He has some savings that he can use, but chooses instead to withdraw the funds from an old 401k that he has a balance of $150,000 in from his last employer. How much will he need to take to pay off his credit card debt and to have the remaining $30,000 he'll need for his down payment? Let's go through the math. Steve's income puts him in the 32% federal tax bracket. That means that Steve will lose 32% of his withdrawal to federal taxes, 6% to state taxes, and an additional 10% penalty for withdrawing the retirement funds before age 59 and a half. That means he'll need to draw $100,000 from his $150,000 balance to net the $52,000 he needs. Pretty steep, huh? When comparing it to how much he will lose in the future, 40% in taxes is the least of his worries. Let's take a look at what he will be losing in terms of future value. Steve's balance after his withdrawal will be reduced to $50,000, as depicted by the orange line. For this example, we use performance from one of the most common balanced funds offered by 401k plans. If we fast forward 30 years in time to when Steve is 65, his balance will have grown only to $634,006. If Steve didn't utilize his 401k funds, his balance would have grown to $1.783 million. His poor decision has cost him over $1 million. It makes the $48,000 loss from the taxes seem like a rounding error. What's even more crazy here is this is a balanced allocation of around 65 equity and 35 fixed income. Most young clients have a tendency to want to be more aggressive since they have so long until retirement. So you can imagine potentially how much more this would be with a more aggressive portfolio. So the lesson here is simple. Stop borrowing from your 401k. If you want to buy a house, plan for it and save. Another all too common mistake we see people making is not contributing enough to their retirement accounts early on in their career. Some people contribute just enough to get the employer match, while others contribute even less or not at all, which eventually leads to them having to massively increase their contributions in their 40s and 50s. And honestly, this sucks because instead of enjoying your 40s and 50s and living your best life, you're stuck with parting with a pretty large percentage of your income just to make up for lost time. I know this sounds trivial, but even just a few years delaying could have a huge impact. Let's take a look at 4 different investors who have each started saving at different ages: 25, 35, 45, and 55, with the goal of saving $1 million by age 65. You can see here from the chart that the individual who begins at 25 has to save significantly less each year as compared to someone starting at, say, age 55, thanks to the power of compounding returns over time. In addition, the person beginning savings at age 25's total contributions are significantly lower than the person starting at 45, less than half. Think about what that could mean for their future. They can use that difference to fund their future children's college or buy a vacation home or whatever other goals they have in mind. The next mistake we see is being unintentionally too conservative or too aggressive without taking into account the impact that it will have on your future balance. How you invest your 401k funds, or any funds for that matter, can significantly impact the balance of your savings at retirement. I can't tell you how many times I've come across the statements from younger clients showing that they are in a fixed account because they just weren't sure what fund they should pick. This can lead to coming up shy when you reach your retirement year, and thus having to lower your expenses significantly because the amount you've saved cannot generate the income you become accustomed to. Let's look at an example of an all-bond portfolio versus an all-equity portfolio for the last 40 years. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Let's look at an example of two of the most common funds we see as options in the 401k plans. Looking at historical performance, the equity fund created about $3 million more in wealth when compared to the bond fund. Historically, equities have provided higher returns over the long term. So if you have over 10 years to retirement, you can see how having a higher equity allocation in at least the early part of your career can benefit your portfolio. On the flip side, being too aggressive in the 3 to 5 years leading up to retirement can seriously put your quality of retirement in danger. This is because the more equity exposure in a portfolio, the more potential volatility you can have. A great example of this was in the great financial crisis of 2008. If you're mostly equity at the top of the market and your intentions were to retire, you basically had two options once the market fell. It was to either keep working and wait for it to recover, or retire and significantly reduce your lifestyle. Either way isn't ideal. Now, if you had methodically transitioned your portfolio to a more diversified, conservative portfolio as you neared retirement, the downturn you experienced would have been significantly lower. Now, I've saved the best for last. This mistake is perhaps the worst one that someone could ever make. Even if you maxed out your retirement savings, had an appropriate asset allocation, and managed to never dip into your 401k funds, trying to time the markets can lead to absolute disaster. We all know the golden rule of investing is to buy low and sell high. Unfortunately, this is not what most people do in a market downturn because we're human. Fear sets in and your mind goes to preservation. And what do people do? They sell low. Numerous studies have shown that the majority of investors who attempt to time the market underperform compared to a simple buy and hold strategy. The Dalbar's quantitative analysis of investor behavior study consistently finds that the average equity fund investor significantly underperforms the broader markets. Over the last 20 years, the average investor has seen returns of around 3% annually, compared to around 7 to 8% for the S&P 500. Research shows that if an investor missed just the 10 best days in the stock market over a 20-year period, their overall return could be cut by almost half. For instance, if the S&P 500 had returned 9% annually, missing those 10 best days could reduce the annual return to around 5%. What it comes down to is people make these decisions because of fear, which is understandable. But switching to a fixed account when the markets drop or buying into stocks when markets are high can lead to adverse consequences. Now, you may be saying, well, David, with my luck, the market may fall and never come back. I suppose anything is possible, but that being said, you need to stop worrying, and here's why. History has shown the longer the period, the greater the chances of a positive outcome when investing. The S&P 500 is positive 84% of the time in any 3-year period in history. Now, if you look at any 10-year period, that probability of positive returns jumps to 94%. So please stop comparing investing to gambling. If these were the probabilities for gamblers, casinos would not exist. Downturns are natural. They're part of investing, so relax, take a breath, and don't make any huge changes. Avoiding these common mistakes can help ensure that your 401k works as hard for you as possible. By taking these steps, you'll be better positioned to enjoy a comfortable and secure retirement. Remember, your 401k is a crucial part of your retirement strategy. Make informed decisions and periodically review your plan to ensure you're on track to meet your retirement goals. And for God's sakes, hire a competent financial planner if you aren't feeling confident. Or you can subscribe to our Strata Capital channel to learn how to do it yourself. If you found anything in the video useful, please put a $sign in the comments. Help us on our mission to bring transparency to our industry and financial competency to all. Thanks for watching today's video. If you want to see exactly how we do this for our clients, or if you want to book a quick telewealth discovery call, click the link in the description below. We'll see you on the next one.